Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, What's Your Next? Managing Inventory Availability and Fulfillment. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us. Just a couple of housekeeping items we'd like to mention before we begin. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please submit them through the GoToWebinar question box. We'll be answering any questions following the presentation. We're also recording today's webinar, so everyone will receive a recording in tomorrow's follow-up email. I'd like to go ahead and introduce today's speaker. Todd Waterman is a NAV Solutions architect at Velosio. Todd has more than 15 years of experience as a subject matter expert in technology and business software consulting and has an extensive background in horticultural and agricultural fields and the technologies and solutions specific to that industry. So at this point, Todd, I believe we're ready to transition over to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Thank you again for showing up today on this Halloween day. Happy Halloween, everybody. Go ahead and switch to the first slide here, Rebecca, if you could. So, managing inventory availability and fulfillment. This is a big one. And as I say here, it's complicated. And we understand it's complicated. I often think about how nice it would be to make widgets or something that a machine made and you dumped into one bin and it never moved, it never spoiled, it never went bad, it never got disease, nobody put it in the wrong place, things like that. But unfortunately, we deal with a live product, so it makes managing inventory and availability and fulfillment much more complicated. And so what we're going to go over today is ways that our system, I believe, really helps with that. Just a couple things about managing inventory and what we see most of the time when we go into prospects is that sales and production is in two different systems or more even. You know, we've seen it in an Access database, two spreadsheets, and a sales system. You know, that's, everybody loves to work in Excel. It's very common that production is done in Excel. But the problem is that there's one grower or head manager that handles that spreadsheet, and for one, they're the only ones that really know how it works. So what if they get hit by a bus, right? So first thing that makes it really difficult is that if the sales orders are in one system and the availability is updated manually in there because everything's done in spreadsheets, you can obviously there's a huge gap in the information, and you know that the product is being moved and consolidated and dumped, what have you, and a lot of times maybe the inventory is only counted weekly because of that, because the system's not actually deducting each sale from the inventory. So they have to wait until the next count to figure out what's out there. We have customers that count every day or twice a day, and think how much labor that is. And as I said before, think of all the movements, dumps, crop failures, all the different things that's happened to the product out there. You're already only sending the availability out once a week or every other day or so. And plus, with all of these movements and dumps and crop failures and the forklift ran over trays, and you know, you guys all know all the things that happen out there. So it becomes very, very difficult. And so what that does is that breeds a lack of confidence in the numbers, especially for the salespeople and for order entry. You know, I can remember years and years going to where pretty much every number they looked at, they would question, is that really real? Am I going to put this order in, it says it's available, and then later today, production or someone's going to come and say, hey, I know there was a number there, but that's wrong. That's really more the norm, at least where I came from. When we started, we had a 3-ring binder with the availability in it, and the growers would come up about 6 times a day and change the numbers, literally with a pencil. And we pulled it off, but like I said, it doesn't need to be that complicated. And another thing that happens too is everything that production's doing in that spreadsheet has to be updated in the sales system, at least what the availability is. And so then there's a lot of manual entry. You know, there's maybe 2 or 3 employees that get the spreadsheets from what production did that day and have to sit there and key that in. You know, so that's a lot of wasted data. Also, multiple locations. We see this a lot. There could be, you have multiple locations and you have multiple production managers, and each one of them, even though you're the same company growing the same product, they all do their processes differently. And also mobility. Usually you don't have mobility if you're doing it in Excel. Some people have gotten some scanning systems just to help scan the numbers so they can at least export that into a spreadsheet. But again, without mobility, it's really, you still have that gap. You know, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you're doing things in production and don't update the system to that night or the other day or the next day or a week later, who knows how long? You know, how are you going to be able to trust those numbers? And I'm not saying any of this is easy, but mobility definitely plays into that. Go ahead and switch. Okay, then we come to our solution, Velosio's solution for growers. So the big difference between what we got going here is it's Microsoft Dynamics NAV is the business system, ERP they call it. That's everything from your accounting to your sales, the inventory, you know, warehousing, order entry, all of those things are all in one unified system. And the beauty of that is there's 160,000 companies across the world that use that system. So think how many different, how much input and how many different things get entered into the product because that many companies are using it. And so even though you're growing plants, you still are a manufacturer. And so there's 160,000 different companies, whether it's services or there's lots of manufacturing using this system. So it has so many things that you've dreamed of all these years. And I really think that the industry's been starving for a mainstream system like this that has a growing solution, which is AgriWare. So you couple Microsoft Dynamics NAV, the add-on for horticulture, AgriWare, and then you really have this system, like I said, that I think the industry has been starving for. And one of the main things about this, and I'm really going to show you today, is the access to information. You know, even if your numbers are correct, I bet a lot of times you'd like to see behind those numbers and see really what transpired to make up those numbers. And I'm going to show you how you can visualize that today, or you can see it. Another thing, the system's completely integrated with Office 365, which everybody, like I said, is using Excel and using all those tools, and this system is integrated with those. So all of this together, add mobility. I'm going to talk about mobility. I'm not actually going to show any mobility, but I will be referencing that and explaining that a bit as we go through this. But that's really the true way to get this to be live. Everybody wants live inventory, but like I said, if you're out there dumping and making adjustments, but not posting it to the end of the day, that's not live. And we are completely aware that it's not that easy. Maybe you don't have a wireless connection. The beauty is that our mobility does work offline too. But if you're in that position and you have to work offline, you're still not going to update the inventory to the end of the day, which sometimes that's all you can do. So we understand that. But so I'd like to show just how this unified system and of how you can really not only see the numbers, but also see what's behind them. And it really allows even the end salesperson or sales order entry person to really have insight and be proactive rather than reactive. Because we all know that if you ship something and don't tell the customer, or don't ship something, and where the customer doesn't find out until it's on their dock that they're shorted, they get very upset. And that's very understandable. 9 times out of 10, if you call them a week or two before and tell them it's going to be short, they're fine because at least they know. And for instance, in young plants, they may have a crew there waiting to plant those. So then when it lands on the dock, they see half of the liners are missing and they have a crew there. They're mad, right? And that can actually cost us customers, which I know that might have happened to some of you in the past. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and have Rebecca close this and share my screen. Let me know once you can see it, Rebecca.
I can see it.
Okay. So I think most of you have probably seen some of my webinars, but this is the kind of my cockpit here in Dynamics NAV. What I'm going to start with is just something really simple. I'm going to go to my plant items list. And so all this is my list of everything that I sell, okay? So I'm not suggesting that you run to this list to look at availability or anything like that, but I just want to point out that even just in this plant items alone, look at how much information you have access to. So take, for instance, this angelface blue here, Angelonia. You can see you have 0 on hand. And one thing I want to mention about on hand, that doesn't mean it's available. What that means is that's actually what's on hand. Like you could have 10,000 on hand, maybe 8,000 of them are really already booked on a sales order, but it's still going to say 10,000 there. That means what's on the property right now? What do we actually have sitting here? So that's what's key about on hand. So you're not going to really look at on hand availability or on hand to see what's available to sell. But let me just get to different G's here. Petunia is my favorite. Hold on a second, So here's some more numbers. So we can see here that the Super Tunia really red. We have 10,000 on hand. We have 0 quantity on sales orders, 0 in production, and there's no purchase orders. But then you look at Royal Velvet up here and we have 6,000 on hand. It's 2,520 on a sales order. We also have a purchase order for 3,000. So the beauty of this is even in this list is completely live, really a living and breathing thing here, and this changes as things change in the system right before your eyes. So if I want to look at the quantity on sales orders, I can just click right there, allegedly. And there is, what's really cool about this is these are all individual sales orders, but it's only showing the lines. So you can actually see, so there may be other products on these orders, but I am looking specifically at Royal Velvet. So it's showing me the different orders. Here's the order numbers, what location. Some are coming from our 700 location. They're orders that are going to ship from there. I have some from Maine. If I wanted to see purchase orders, you can click on purchase orders and it's going to pull up. There's only one. If I actually do want to go to that document to take a look, I can click right there. And so this is something that I really, and some of what I'm showing you isn't necessarily have to do with availability, but it has to do with visibility. So you can see right here, and remember, I started at just the plant list and now all of a sudden I'm in a PO, right? But I haven't left the plant list. This is what the amazing part of NAV is, this drill down capability is if you ever wonder what's behind a number, click on it, right? So this looks like, oh, it's arriving today. But look at what's really nice about this is that here this 3,000 is arriving today. And if I look over to the right, the availability says there's 2,980 available. Why is that? Well, let's click on that and see. Oh, see, there was an order for 20 already. And then we see, this is a pretty old order, 517. That's some old junk of mine. But now you can see that this purchase order is coming in here. So it's already taking into account. So those of you that buy some products in and resell it, as well as grow things, as soon as you make the purchase order, that becomes available to book against immediately. And even though it's not there, the PO could still not be open, hasn't even been posted yet, but still it does show availability for people to enter orders against. Let me just back out of here. So I just hit escape out of here. See, I've never left this planting list here. But on the quantity on hand, let's take a look at, well, let's look at a different one. Let's look at this Super Tunia Latte. So if I click on the quantity on hand, look at what you got here. This is actually a ledger. And this is what's so slick about the way that they've designed this system is really everything has a ledger. Think about accounting, so this is every transaction that's happened to that product that makes up that on-hand number. And so in Dynamics Nav, there's a customer ledger, there's an inventory, well, that's actually a journal. So there are ledgers and journals, there's an inventory journal, there's vendor ledgers and all that. So what that enables you to do is click on any of that, no matter if it's a customer, a vendor, a product, what have you, you're going to get all the history and all the different transactions that's happened. So especially when you see a negative number in availability or anything like that, it's very quick for the average user to click through and figure out what happened what exactly is going on. So let's look at just a couple of these. And just one note about um, mobility is really all we do. It's very simple. I mean, there's a free mobility app for Nav that really can do a lot. It does not work offline, so if that's one of the issues if you excuse me, are in a rural area. But and then we also do have a more advanced solution that works offline. But really, all we're doing is publishing pages or ledgers like this, and only show the fields they need. But that's how they're updating inventory, doing moves and things like that. So it's very simple to use. So you can see right here, I'm going to start at the bottom. There was 104, and then you can see there was a positive adjustment, and this is actually a job number right there. And then you can see output. There's another job of 10,000, and then there was a negative adjustment. And so what happened there, right? Well, let's check it out. We can navigate right here and see what was that. And look at this, is actually drilling into show actually the different postings and what accounts it got posted to. So if I look at the item ledger entry, it'll show you the different entries. That's kind of busy. Let's open up this GL entry. But you can see what accounts, what it did. Here was the cost of that product, and then when there was an adjustment, it subtracted that out. But you can see every entry and what accounts it goes, and not the average user is probably not going to want to see what accounts it got posted to, but you can if you need to. So here we have a purchase receipt. We bought 8,000. Then there was another adjustment. And look at here, this is interesting too, is look at it's already, this is something that really does affect availability a lot. If you have multiple locations and you're shipping product to one of your locations, we use what's called a transfer order, and it's pretty slick because think about how you could miss that availability. What if you had, you were short on some petunias or something, so another location is going to send you over petunias to fill that. Does the order entry people see that that's on the way there or that's coming? Probably only the shipping department or production knows about that. Where in this system, you create a transfer order, and let's just look at a transfer order real quick. We can get to that from here. You can see that it left the main location. And right now the location code is transit, which means it's still on the way. It's not here yet, but you are still able to see it and book orders against it because you know when it's supposed to arrive. Actually, I'm going to show this. I'll show this example in another one. Let's back out of here. But so moral of the story is behind these numbers are these ledgers. So it's very easy to look into what is going on here. Okay. So that's a little bit just about this list of some of the visibility you have of what's going on. Let's go ahead and jump into where normally you would be. Looking at this is probably in a sales order. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some items in here. I got them on a spreadsheet here. I'm just going to paste them in here. Come up, see what it's doing. It's actually, as it's pasting these items in here, it's checking the availability against the numbers I have on there. So you can see it's already flagging me here and saying, what? Angel Face Blue. We have 0 inventory, so I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of that. Let's just look at these one by one. And so you can see here on Super Tunia Latte, I want 1,200 of them, right? And if we look over to my fact box on the right, we can see the availability is 3,235. That's what's left because it's already actually subtracting what I've ordered here. So there's no issue there. That's fine. Hopefully, more than not, your order entry people see a number and they can just book against it because think how fast that is. But we know that there's plenty of time where maybe there's not availability, there's not enough. And back in my day, they would print up the order and write with a pen on there of what they want to see if it's going to be ready early, or they could pull a week ahead, what have you, put it in a box, and then the grower would come up throughout the day and grab all the papers and then go in and look at each order manually. That's tough. And that's a customer and a sales rep that is waiting for an answer for all day or something about one product, and those are the things that really slow things down and then in the end affect the customer. So let's look at Super Tunia Latte here. We got 1200. And then I gotta let's go ahead and look at it. There's three, even though we have the availability, I want to go ahead and see what's going on here. So I'm going to click on the number. This is really an availability by event, is what it's called. But you can, just like that ledger we just looked at, you can look at everything that's happened here. We have a job here that was 1500, expired, because I have like a 2 or 3 week hold or something. So if you don't sell it and don't extend the shelf life, it will expire on its own. You don't have to do that. But here's that transfer order right here, 3000. I can actually jump to that transfer order real quick and show you what that is. These are very, very simple. All I did is put, I'm transferring from Maine to this location 700 and put what I wanted. And that's it. And what that does is there doesn't have to be a purchase order or any sort of transaction or anything. That just means, hey, I'm moving inventory that I own from one location to the other. And so that's all you need to do here. So this is actually not arrived yet. Once it's arrived, they would just say, oh, I did receive it. And now see, it deleted the transfer order. It doesn't even really need a history of it because you already own the inventory. You just moved it from one place to another. Okay. And then you can see here's our sales order right here for 1200. So even as you're in the order, other order entry people will already not, I know there's some systems that until you save the order or back out of the order, it actually doesn't commit and take that inventory, where this is actually while you're on each line, it does it live. Let's look at our Royal Velvet. What do we got here? We do have enough. Let's take a look what's happening here. Oh, look at, we bought some in here. So it's interesting that the sales or the order entry people can drill into these things and actually see what the product is. They know that 3,000 of these came from someone else. So this isn't even something that we've grown. But here we do have a job in production. That's our own for 7,900. And look at these orders that are taking part of that. Visibility. Okay, this is an interesting one. So we got Wave Blue, Petunia. We got 10,000. That's a pretty big batch. And first thing that I would think about when we only have, obviously it's already taking 10,000 of here, so there's only 1,800 left. So what I would be thinking, is that 10,000 all from the same batch, or is it different ages? Some of it finished, 2 weeks ago, some of it finished today, and this is an important customer. So I want to know really, where is this coming from and how old is it and what have you. So again, I can just click and drill down here. And so look at this. So here we have a production job, and you can see the period start, which is when it starts hitting the availability, is 11/12. So this isn't done yet, which is fine. We can book against it, which obviously we are. Here's that 10,000. But how is that job going, right? How do you even know? So let's go for it. Let's just do one click and we'll go check out the production job. And remember, we're still just in the sales order here. So if you haven't seen this before, this is actually a production job, and these are showing the different activities that happen with the job. So even though I'm just a sales order entry person, I'm going in here and I'm going to look at our production job. And we can see that the germination happened. When was it supposed to happen? It was supposed to be planted on 9/3. It actually got planted on 9/4. Well, fine, that's just a day later, right? And you can see the work order, right? That a work order was created. And even if you wanted to, I'm not going to do it right now, but you could actually show the work order if you want. But so there was a work order registered, and that's how we got our actual date and our quantities. Now you can see that there was a plug plug inspection. That was performed, that's fine. But what I wanted to point out here is right here, the potting was supposed to happen on 10/8, and they potted it on 10/15. So to me, as an order entry person, I would think, okay, they planted that a week late. Here I got 10,000. I'm claiming almost all of this batch for one customer. Is it really going to be done in time for that 11/12 date? Probably not. And how has the weather been, right? So I can even look up here and see different things about this job. A lot of zeros in here. I don't have a lot of things in here, but there's been 3 work orders. I could drill down and look at those. If there was any crop treatments, I could see that. Inspections. But look, there's one observation. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that observation is. Look at that observation yesterday at 6:40 p.m. It was a quality, and they're saying growing slow and started late. That's a problem. So you can see that I'm finding out all this information. Oh, and look at, there's some to-dos. There's a to-do created here. Look at a to-do that's in progress and push finish week 1 week. So we didn't talk to a grower, we didn't do anything. We were able to go look. I'm sure they'll be thrilled that you can really have insight into what they're doing and when they've planted on time or late. But what a great way to be able to hold them accountable. So already I've kind of answered my own question. It looks like there's a note here. Here's the note. Could not find liner trays. Receiving put in wrong area. Planted a week late. That's probably never happened to anybody. It's happened to me a lot. So there you've pretty much seen there's going to be a problem with your order. Now you need to look farther out or what have you, but look at all this I did, and I still have not left the sales order. So obviously we got an issue here we're going to have to deal with. Angel Face Blue. You can see, look, there's nothing. I booked 8,000. So it's saying negative 8,000. So there's an issue there. We don't have it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to this little availability, and I'm going to say availability by location, because here I'm ordering from location 700, but we have another location that also grows some of these crops. So I can just quickly click order location or availability by location. And you can see here's our gross requirement for the 8,000 we just put in. Ooh, but look at, there's a scheduled receipt of what? Oh, it's a purchase line. There it is right there. There is an order for 15,000 that's coming in and supposed to be there 11/8. So that will work for me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to back out of here and just change this. Now every sales line is independent, so I can actually say, you know what, I'm going to be pulling this from the main location. And look at there. Now we have only 7,000 available there, so we got a problem. I'm going to go ahead and take all of it. Whoops, it's the wrong item. Okay, almost done here. So Royal Velvet. Now normally, like I said, you wouldn't be looking through every item like this, but what I want to show you is all the different tools and the visibility you have to really figure things out. Like I said, in a perfect world, you just have numbers and you enter them. Okay, let's see here. Let's look at something a little bit different here. So here we got Super Tuny Vista bubblegum. There's none. I'm going to just shoot from the hip here and think there's some at the main. So there's 15,000 at the main location currently, okay? But what if you're in an order here, and just to show you how live this is, I'm actually going to pull up an inventory journal. And so this can be done. This is another thing that's very easy to do on mobility. It doesn't look like much, but really all the mobility would have is just the quantity calculated in the physical. But what if they just looked at this Super Tuny bubble gum? Here it's at that main location. and really all of it was bad and it was diseased. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this over here. So you have 15,000 available. So as soon as I post this, that we have 0. Let's see what happens. It's gone. So it's 0. So even if you're in an order, now that could have, that right there was a physical count or something. Hopefully they would notify if they're going to dump 15,000 of something. But you can see that there was no, if someone was out there with a mobile device, and that could have been, subtracting maybe 10 trays, any kind of adjustment, any move or anything. There's not a utility to run. There's nothing to come update anything. It is live and all of this is connected. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit about some of the visibility. You can see there's a lot of different ways that you can look at availability from inside the order. And let's go look at another tool, sales planning. So this is a tool to look at availability throughout future, backwards, forwards. This has every item that you grow, and so just a little bit about this screen here. This you do calculate, and the reason that it doesn't update automatically is that because you're showing all your products. This is really like a sales planning tool to be able to look and see what's going on. But you do click the calculate button just to improve how fast it is. So each time you do click calculate, the numbers can change. Let's go ahead and look at some of our petunias here. So you can see these numbers. This is cumulative availability, right? That's why there's 1,000 right here. I'd assume this is probably the same job, and it's 2-week hold. But just like in the order, like we can click on these numbers and see. Whoops, I clicked the wrong thing there. Oh, there's a supply of 1,000. And that lasts for 2 weeks. What do we have here? 1,800 there. Okay, so we got that supply job. Remember, we already looked. This is that one 11,800 that really is going to be pushed a week, but that to-do has not been done yet. But look, you can already see the demand against that too. It's 10,000 of it's already claimed by that order that we were just in. And I could drill down to the order or get to it right from there. Let's look at another one. And so here's just a supply job. So one thing I do need to say about how this works as far as out of the box is, even though they're trying to line these orders up with specific production jobs, they are not actually reserved or linked to that. And that's something that is really a struggle for a lot of customers if the system automatically allocates that sales order to that actual production job. Now we can do that if you want to, with full lot tracking and reservations and things like that. But most customers want to be able to ship what they want. Leave it up to inventory. All that order entry has to see whether there's some available, and the inventory people decide what product to ship. And so that is how this is working. Okay. Okay, so we're getting close to be finished here. So that's pretty much all I have about the sales or the sales planning. But it's a good way to go in, and a couple things that I didn't mention is you can actually switch this to required to see actually what orders are. See, there's actually only orders in week 46, right? I can switch this back to, I always leave it as difference because then it's going to show the difference. And what will happen is you can even see negatives, right? So we got a negative for this Angelonia, 8,000. It's going to show it in red. And so if there was multiple orders in here, it would actually, that would have been nicer for me to do. But let's say one customer had 4,000, one customer had 4,000. It would show two lines, and maybe if there was 4,000 available, the one would be in blue, and it would show you who ordered it first and took the rest of the availability, and then it always highlights in red which order puts you over the top. So this is a great way. A lot of customers don't want to go negative, so we stop that. But depending on if there's enough time to grow it and you want it to go negative, this is a great way to go looking and see, because as soon as we put a forecast out, all these numbers are there. And so even though you haven't started growing it yet, and actually I wanted to show you that. Where's my coleus? So let's look at this job right here. So this job hasn't started yet. They're planning to grow 7,000. So immediately when they even, pardon me, even when they release or don't even release the job and it's just planned, you still have a number to book against, okay? So, but just to show you how how this stuff changes live depending on what's happening in production, I'm gonna go ahead and open the work order. This is the work order for to plant up those 7,000. And so if you haven't seen a work order before, there's not much to it. All they do is really come in, and I'm not going to take the time to print it, but it prints very nicely too in the event that you do print it and come back. But again, there's going to be that gap in your numbers if you do that. So we highly suggest getting a cheap PC or an iPad or something, hopefully on the line or something, to where as these jobs are planted, they can enter the numbers. But so I'm gonna look, it was supposed to be on 10/22. Obviously we're not doing that, so we're already late. And look, we're supposed to grow 7,000, but really there was only 6,500 that were good for whatever reason. So you can see all of my inputs change down here, 6,500. Actually, there's 3 rooted cuttings in each 10-inch pot, but this is also how it's handling our inventory of our hard goods and such. But so I got 65,000. I'm going to post this. Okay, so now that that's posted, I'm going to click calculate. And it should have changed. Maybe I had the wrong up. So it should be changing to 6,500. I think I posted the wrong work order, but it's a demo, right? So this information actually does change. Let me just open this again and just see, so it doesn't make a liar out of me. Oh, well, I'll have to look into that after. Oh, it worked when I tried it before the presentation, obviously. But I've seen this work all the time. So basically, as they're posting their work orders and growing, because we know, usually what we planned isn't what we planted. Or if there's an inspection in the middle of that job and then, there was 8,000, then they run an inspection and find out, oh, several died. As they're posting those work orders, just like you saw in the order entry screen, those numbers change live. So basically, like I said, there's nothing to run, there's nothing to come update. All people have to do is, as long as they're registering and putting their information in the system does the rest. So that's a little bit, that's about all I have today. Hopefully that's given you some more insight on the visibility, and I think this availability issue will never fully go away. Just because it's a live product, there's always going to be things that we don't have control of. But I think you can see how much more impactful it is to have everything together. And also your customers will notice right away by how quickly you're going to get back to them, how quickly you can take care of problems and be, much more proactive than just reactive all the time and always having to give bad news. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Rebecca.
Thanks, Todd. We did have a few questions come in. When planting happens a week late, as in your example, does the ready date update accordingly?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes and no. This system, unlike others, it does plan backwards and forwards. And what I mean by that is, and what I was doing in this example was backwards planning. Like I say, I want it ready week 51. The system's going to go backwards and say, okay, this is when you have to plant it. Then I'm saying this is when I want to sell it. Okay. In that instance, it doesn't do that because you already said I want it ready by 51. Okay. But if I did forward planning and I said, okay, today I'm going to plant that same 8,000 and I'm planning forward, and then it says, okay, then it says, oh, you're planted it today, it's going to go forward and say it will be finished here, and that's where it's going to put the availability. Now, in that example, when you're forward, which a lot of people do, there's really, it depends on your opinion of it. It's not that one's better than the other. But if you do forward, then as you're registering those work orders, and as soon as you did that a week late, it would if you're forward planning, it would push it the end date. Hope that answers that.
In sales planning, can I see items by season?
Yes. Yes, you could do that. There's a lot of different properties and identifying fields in here, like item categories. There's item attributes, all different ways to categorize your product. And then so you would use one of those, like an item category, to mark it seasonal, and then you can filter the list like that. The list filters much like all the other Excel type lists.
Can I prioritize my sales planning by items that are negative based on supply and demand?
Hmm. Well, the sales planning, that's really all you're doing is looking. That would be more of production planning. I believe you can do that. I'll save that question, Rebecca, and who that is, and I'll look into that real quick and email them back.
What kind of devices are used for mobility?
Oh, that's a good question. Really, it's completely device agnostic. Means you can use whatever you want. Really, everybody has phones now. One of the things we used to spend about $2,800 on these rugged simple scanners and everything. And nowadays, almost every employee has a phone, whether or not, it's your choice whether or not to let them use their own phone or a company phone. But, you can go to the App Store and download the Nav app, and it works. Like I said, that doesn't work offline. Some of the production things aren't really justified right for those screens, so we edit them a little bit. But again, there is also a more custom offline um, version that we do, but it really can be done on a tablet, on your phone, PC, anything.
Can you reserve product and link sales orders to specific batch?
Yeah, that's what I was touching on that just a little bit because we have a lot of customers using systems where it automatically allocates the orders whether you want it to or not. And that creates a lot of nightmares of, for moving product, shipping product. But you absolutely can do that. There's something called reservations, and you can do both. You can reserve some product. It's not like you have to choose one or the other. There may be some product lines that you really want to tie to specific lots and everything. You absolutely can do that. But the beauty is that you don't have to.
Well, it looks like that's all of the questions we have for today. So I wanted to thank you again, Todd, for the great presentation. Oh, but it looks like something might have come in. Oh, okay. Yes, Linda, I will get that to you. But again, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you again, Todd, for the great
Yeah, guys,
presentation.
thank
We'll
you very
see you all
much. It's
next
my
time.
pleasure. See you next time.